Dumelang, welcome to Face the Nation. My name is Clement Manyathela. Great to have you with us here on SABC News. On the show tonight, more dead bodies of illegal miners have been pulled out in Stilfontein as the Ministers of Police and Mineral Resources visited the area earlier today. There are now concerns that there may be more dead bodies underground, which prompts the question, could this whole operation have been handled differently by government from the start? Could government have started this rescue operation with this special cage much earlier? And could the illegal miners have come out much earlier to avoid this tragedy? The Deputy Minister of Police, Boshielo, speaks to us tonight. Also on the show, the organizations that are representing the illegal miners are blaming government for the dead bodies that are piling up, claiming that government simply acted too late because it didn't care about the livelihoods of the illegal miners. Mametlwe Sebei, who is an attorney at Lawyers for Human Rights, will join us. And then later, will there be a compromise on the NHI? The health minister says not at all, but the president has asked the business community to give inputs on how this law and what they're unhappy about, what they want to be changed. The health minister, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, joins us tonight. But first, my comment. So the Ministers of Police, GNU, and the Mineral Resources Minister, Mantashe, were in Stilfontein today. They've given an update on how many people have been rescued as well as the bodies retrieved thus far. And I'll let you listen to the ministers themselves give us the numbers. But I really want us to reflect on the approach that's been taken by government and whether it was the right approach to take initially. And I'm not suggesting here that it wasn't the right approach. But I want to hear from you. Could government have handled this matter any differently? And let me be clear, I do think what's happening in Stilfontein is criminal. There's no question about it. Those illegal miners, regardless of the circumstances that led to them being and going underground, many of them went there knowing exactly that this was an illegal activity. And they should be handled like that, like any other criminal, and be held accountable. But government also has a responsibility here in handling any criminal for that matter. They must do so with dignity and uphold their human rights because that's what the Constitution requires. And I think by far and large, government tried to do what it could to rescue this situation, but there was no clear cooperation from underground. Instead, there were requests that were coming out, some of them really ridiculous. I mean, some illegal miners were writing love letters to their partners instead of coming out, clearly stating that they don't want to come out because they want to try and avoid arrest. At some point, I wondered why community leaders were sympathetic with illegal miners and not trying to strike a balance between representing the interests of the community whose loved ones are still underground and the need for the police to do their job, which is to bring the miners out and hold them accountable. Now, having said all that, it's not good, obviously, to see a pile of bodies coming from underground, whether these are locals or they're foreigners, legal or not. That's a disaster that I think should have been avoided at all costs. I mean, as of this afternoon, there was a total of about 118 illegal miners who have been retrieved, with today's operation continuing up until 10 p.m. this evening. But what could have government done differently? Were the police supposed to risk their lives and go underground last year already and face the possibility of being attacked because we know how heavily armed many of these illegal mining groups are? Should the police have initially blocked the exits when they started this operation? Should government have escalated this rescue operation? Why start it only now when this cage that's retrieving these miners and bodies now could have been deployed last year already? There are so many questions, and I'm not sure that I have the answers. Listen to what the minister in the presidency said in the beginning about the miners in Stilfontein.
You want us to send help to criminals, honestly. We're not sending help to criminals. We're going to smoke them out. They will come out. We are not sending help to criminals. Criminals are not to be helped. Criminals are to be persecuted. We didn't send them there. And they didn't go down there for the good benefit or good intentions for the Republic.
That's what the Minister in the Presidency, Kumbuzo Nchaveni, said. And that informed and explained government's position from the start. And I do think government has to be more matured than criminals, right? They can't be pedestrian about such critical and sensitive issues and operations, even in how they communicate. I mean, did you hear the police minister or even the mineral resources minister saying publicly and approaching this matter in that manner? But then the question still sticks. What else did we expect government to do? Listen to what the Mineral Resources Minister, Gwede Mantashe, said earlier today, talking about who should take responsibility for this crisis.
But if you go and steal gold, you can't give anybody any responsibility for that who is operational. It is your responsibility and your the person who drives you. These foot soldiers are taking this gold to somebody. That somebody must take responsibility for them.
Now, the police minister, Senzo Mchunu, also explained earlier today how this operation will be unfolding over the next few days.
This operation is underway for 10 days from yesterday. Then after 10 days, we'll stop to assess. Now, any indicator or indication that it still has to go on, or there are still people who are underground, or whatever, we will take on board until we are more than reasonably satisfied that we've done everything reasonable.
And those that are responsible for this mine rescue operation also explained the process that's been unfolding since yesterday.
Camera inside the cage and also on the top. The one at the bottom and the top we use to guide ourselves as we're driving blindly in the shaft, so we can see whether there's any obstructions or whether it's safe to raise or lower the conveyance. And the camera inside the cage, we continuously monitor the condition of the people that we are busy wasting. We also make use of these cameras for communication purposes between ourselves, the hoist driver, and the people that are being loaded inside the cage.
Now, the question we're asking you tonight is, do you think this situation could have been handled any differently, and how? Do you think government was right to take the hardline approach from the beginning? Do you think government could have acted sooner in deploying this cage down to retrieve these miners? Because a lot of them are coming out with this cage, which raises the question, were they really against coming out? Or are they coming out now because they're out of options? Let us know your thoughts. You can send us a WhatsApp voice note on 078 459 1897. Remember to tell us your name and say name and where you're sending the voice note from. And please keep it at 30 seconds. Alternatively, you can send us an X on @FaceTheNation SABC. Right, let's stay with that story. Over 80 of those illegal mine workers have been brought to the surface at that abandoned mine shaft in Stilfontein in the northwest over the last 2 days. 36 bodies have also been retrieved in that period. A 16-day operation funded by the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy and the Minerals Council has seen this state-of-the-art equipment and 180 personnel from the SAPS, emergency medical services, pathology units and other stakeholders being deployed. The police minister, Senzo Mchunu, told the media during that visit earlier today that over 1,500 illegal miners have been arrested before their extraction commenced. 997 of them are Mozambican. All right, let's now start this conversation now with the Deputy Minister who's joining us now on the line. This is the Deputy Minister of Police, Paul Boshielo. Deputy Minister, thank you so much for making time for us. Good evening.
Good evening, and good evening to your viewers.
So there are, in my understanding, about 36 or so bodies that were retrieved since yesterday. There are other bodies that were retrieved before this cage went down in the last 2 months or so. How many dead bodies in total were brought up?
Okay, let me start first by just correcting some narratives as we were playing some of the things or people talking. As the police, we started the Vala Umgodi there at Stilfontein from the 18th of August until the 11th of January. And we were able to arrest the Mozambicans, you have said, about 997, Zimbabweans, 427, Basotho, 118, South Africans, 21, Congolese, 1, Malawian, 1, and deceased at that time were 9. And all the total is 1,576. That was before we even start about the rescue. And then we confiscated gold-bearing materials worth 46 million, gold itself worth 6 million, and then cash 492,340, which in total comes to 52.49 million. And also, we confiscated explosive, about 30 kg, illegal firearms, we got at least 1, and ammunitions, about 29. Those are before we even started the rescue services. So when these legal miners then refused to come out, the police were just standing outside still waiting for them to come out. And as they come out, they were arresting them, searching them for gold and all other things. So from our side, we never stopped anybody from going in or out. As they see the police outside, they were running back to the home. So we never stopped anybody from doing that.
Yeah. How were you able to confiscate that cash and the illegal firearms and all that gold that you just mentioned? Is that something that the police confiscated from underground, or is that what the police confiscated as the miners were coming out?
As the miners were coming out, as I said, police are not trained to be mine rescuers. So they were static and staying outside and waiting for the miners to come out and then taking actions from there. So they never went inside or never stopped anybody from getting out.
How many dead bodies have been retrieved so far? I think yesterday from day one they indicated about 9. If I'm not mistaken, today the number was at 27. And obviously there are others in December and maybe just a month before then. Do you have the final tally of the dead bodies that have been retrieved so far?
Yes, at as of 1945, 7:45, as I was talking to you, got the figures that 51 dead bodies have been retrieved and 66 have been retrieved alive.
All right, so the total now is at 51.
Yes.
Now, some community leaders and organizations that are representing the illegal miners are saying that there are about 100 bodies or so still underground. They claim to even have videos that show that. Are you expecting that number of bodies underground? Have you also taken sight of this video material they claim to possess?
Remember, let's be honest and truthful, and also remember that we are talking about people's lives. Nobody went underground and counted one by one who is there. All of us don't know how many are there. And we're just trying to rescue everybody, but we don't have figures. All those 1,576 that got out, which we arrested many of them, refused to say who is there, who is not, how many are they and what. And some even said they were held against their will. They didn't want to be there. Some said they ran away in other shaft and all those kind of things. So as the police, we were only static outside, just waiting for them and searching for illegal goods and material. So there's nobody who can give you a correct figure to say, I went down there and let people form a line and then you calculate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nobody knows. But we are saying, that's why we're giving it 10 days and saying after 10 days, we'll then be able to still find out if there's still more to be rescued.
Yeah.
And if there's still more, we'll still rescue them. Yeah,
but those that are undertaking this rescue mission, what are they telling you? What are they seeing down there?
They, as they explained earlier, they have cameras, 3 cameras in the cage. The one that is below, that is guiding the cage, and the one that is inside, and the one that is on top. And it only helps them to guide the cage as it goes down. And remember, it goes down with 2 of the volunteers who are able to assist in terms of bringing people or the bodies on board. So they can't see the whole lot, just to make sure that the cage is not damaged. They said it was damaged this morning and they had to spend 1 hour fixing it, which they would have used it to take out more people. Yeah. That's why they're finishing at 10 this evening. And they said tomorrow, if there is no progress, they will take 24 hours and make sure that we do this as we can.
Yeah. Deputy Minister, could this operation of sending this special cage, could it have started much earlier? Why is this cage only being deployed now? Some lives could have been saved, more of them. And I'm not mentioning that because I think the illegal miners are blameless. I'm mentioning that because you have a constitutional obligation as government to treat even the criminals themselves with dignity. And that's why even last year the court ordered that food must be allowed to be sent down. Why did you only start this operation so late?
We didn't start this operation too late. And if I can tell you, we never even went for holidays because we were meeting almost every day between the net joints and also, as you saw, the Mineral Council, the owners of the mine, the Ministry of Minerals and Resources. All of us were meeting. Firstly, the mine rescuers were saying they are on holiday. They can't be able to come. And then the second one, I think we differed on the contract. They had 29 needs that they wanted us to do. But in terms of government laws, it could not. Like they wanted us to prepay them. So as Minister Mantashe came in, and then it came to the attention of the Minister of Police that actually the owners of the mines are supposed to be the ones that pay for this because they pay money to DMR to be able to rehabilitate. And then also the council, Mineral Council, offered that they will then also contribute so that the operation can go on. And immediately after they agreed, because we're having meeting almost every day, it's just that we're working on this and the net joints and everybody, as we have seen, the forensic, the health, and everybody as we're doing, because it was not going to help us to go to the media every day and then you ask, but you are talking, you are not doing anything. So after, when we have made sure that they have started, that's when you came, see us coming to say we do that. So we're not relaxing at all. Every night we had meeting, we had to call all the stakeholders, and we are happy that the mine owners came on board, and we are also happy that the Mineral Council came on board, and we are very grateful that we're able to do that.
How many of these miners have been arrested so far, and what are they charged with? Because some of them get arrested for, sometimes they are charged with trespassing and then they get released. So how many of them have actually been arrested, and are in jail now?
As of now, in jail, we have about 1,540 in custody. 121 have been deported. 80 Mozambicans, 30 Basutos, and 10 Zimbabweans. And then 46 have been found guilty, and then others have been fined for 12,000 or 6 months. suspension if they are found to be doing that again. And also we have about 103 minors whom we have taken to the Ministry of, or the MEC for Social Development. As we have seen her, she was with us, and also the Minister of the MEC for Health. They are taking care of this 103 minors.
Yeah. Are you receiving any cooperation at all from some of the countries that some of these illegal miners come from? I mean, now there are some of them that are dead. I suppose, I mean, you will need the cooperation of the countries they come from. Are they sitting on the table with you?
Yeah, I think the Department of DERCO is assisting us to be able to do that. Especially our worry is the one that I did, and also the 103 children, because you know, they really don't know why they were there in the first place. And 103 is many, and you can't put them in jail. So I think some are coming on board, and DERCO will assist us to be able to do that as soon as possible.
When you say children, how old are we talking here?
Around 14, you know, and 15. But we'll also give you the figures as soon as we get a concrete report from the forensic, from the police when we reconcile, and then after they are transferred to their countries. For now, we also have to protect them.
Okay. Deputy Minister of Police, Boshielo, thank you so much for making time for us on Face the Nation tonight. After the break, we'll hear from the organization that is representing these illegal miners. Stay with us here on Face the Nation. Welcome back. Now, the community in the Northwest lays the blame squarely at the feet of government for what they call an inhumane response to the illegal miners that are still living underground at this abandoned mine in Stilfontein. They've launched, in fact, court cases after court cases to strong-arm government into rescuing the miners. They've also called for food and other amenities to be sent underground to avoid more dead bodies resurfacing. Let's bring in now Mametlwe Sebei, who is an attorney at Lawyers for Human Rights. Mametlwe, thank you so much for making time for us on Face the Nation tonight. Good evening.
Good evening, and pleasure to be here.
Let's just get your initial response first. I've just interviewed the Deputy Minister of Police earlier on. The tally, I think, was at 36, if I'm not mistaken, of dead bodies that were retrieved over the last 2 days. And the Deputy Minister confirmed earlier that that number is now at just over 50, around 56 or so. These rescue efforts are on their second day. Are you satisfied as Lawyers for Human Rights that government has finally begun this operation, and how it's been running so far?
Well, I mean, as of today, I think the level of efficiency of the rescue has improved quite significantly. I think over 96 people have been rescued, and number of bodies that are on the surface now are over 50, and that just shows that even compared to yesterday, the level of bodies and living miners that have been retrieved has improved quite significantly. We've also said the resumption or commencement of the retrieval and the rescue operation yesterday was a qualitative turning point, a culmination in our relentless efforts at a level of community which has protested the death of their loved ones, at level of solidarity movement that has been built with support with people across the movement in this country. And of course, lots of international solidarity just in terms of fundraising and support to ensure that these miners are kept alive in conditions where they were trapped. They had no option of coming out contrary to government propaganda. And of course, without food, water, and medication, would have died, all of them. As of course, unfortunately, it has been, confirmed in the most bloodiest fashion imaginable, that today we are sitting at over 100 bodies, which, of miners that lost their life needlessly when government was busy fabricating the facts instead of facing the
that 100 number that you mentioned, what's the reference there? Are you saying 100 of them have died, of these illegal miners?
Much more than that. What has transpired is that we received, after, if you remember, after 2-3 days, 2-3 weeks of government having basically, destroyed the police system, which is a community manual rescue through a road, which is also used for supplying of miners. When we re-established that about, I think during the weekend or few days before, I think last week, we then received a letter saying that there's 109 bodies as a result of lack of food, water, and medication.
Which letter? The letter coming from who? Coming from the illegal miners underground? Underground,
yes. Now the police questioned that. Then there was a video that surfaced that showed a pile of bodies. And that's the reason actually the state, when we went to court on Friday on behalf of Zinzi, they had no choice but to make commitment that they will commence the rescue. Yeah. And once the rescue has commenced, the bodies are surfacing, which is a confirmation that the numbers of miners that have lost their life probably are estimated at over 100.
Yeah, I looked at that video as well, Mametlwe, because I had some people send it to me, and I mean, I didn't count 100 bodies at all. I don't know if that's what you were able to count, but the videos you're referring to that even other community leaders have referenced, I saw those. I didn't see 100 bodies, and I'm not suggesting the and, but I'm just saying, let's not say it maybe as fact until the rescue process is done and we know for sure once the rescuers have gone underground.
No, remember that actually that video was taken at one level. So there are many levels. So you are talking here about a hole that is 2 to 3 kilometers underground, and miners at different level. There is, I think that photo was probably taken at 1.6 kilometers. Yeah. But there are many miners that are at different levels of these mines, and that is the bodies we have seen is only where we have sent a drone to confirm the dire and the disparate levels that the miners have reached, which they've communicated. Yeah. So there is simply no doubt that in actual fact, even that number does not account for many who have died, from falling and from drowning in many underground, flooded underground tunnels, trying to make their way to Shaft 10.
Yeah, so obviously now with this tragedy and whether you want to discuss the criminality of this act or you want to talk about whether the government acted too late or the miners themselves didn't come out, it is a tragedy to see so many dead bodies piling up, right? It's a scene here in our country, in the province on the northwest. The question still remains, though, and I'll ask it to you, because I have asked government why they acted so late in bringing about this cage. But to you, as someone representing an organization representing these miners, why didn't they come up much earlier? I mean, there were community leaders who volunteered to take that rope down. They were bringing some of them up, but we constantly saw some letters being written by some of them from underground to their wives and telling them how much they adore them and how they're not going to come out because they don't want to be arrested.
No, the issue of those letters, Clement, I can tell you, government is engaged in a campaign of fabrications from the beginning. And I think we must call this thing what it is, Clement. This is a massacre because what government from day one decided on series of actions that could not have had any other end than the loss of lives of these miners, right? And let's go through the facts. Because to suggest that these miners didn't want to come out, you have got to now conclude that they decided on a mass suicide, right? For what? Because people say these miners are fearing arrest. Over 1,500 to 2,000 miners have come out.
Yeah, those are the brave ones.
Where are they in these jails?
Yeah, but maybe those are the brave ones. The reality here is there are illegal miners who wrote letters. I've read some of them. I've seen even interviews that were done by the wives of some of these illegal miners who confirm that this is my husband's handwriting. This is my husband's letter that they sent through one of the community leaders. I mean, you're also choosing to believe letters that are coming underground telling you there are 100 bodies, but you don't want to believe that there are illegal miners that were fearing arrest? Because that's what they said in the letters. They told their loved ones that we want to come out, but we cannot afford to be arrested.
Clement, we are located at Shaft 11. That is where the crisis is. Every letter that has come out of Shaft 11, we've seen there's not been such a letter. I'm not saying there's not been such a letter. Other letters would have come from other shafts and other mines. Remember, you have different shafts in this area. And what the police are doing, every time a miner comes from Margaret Shaft, they say, you see, they can come. Margaret Shaft does not belong to Stilfontein mine. This is where Shaft 11 is located. It's not even connected to it, right? All of these shafts are not connected to Shaft 11 except Shaft 10, right? And for miners to move from Shaft 11 to Shaft 10, on average, it takes them 7 days of crawling in an underground flooded tunnels. All letters that have come out of Shaft 11, we've seen them, there's not been such a letter. I'm not saying there were not such letters.
How
right?
did you see the letters from... How did you see these letters from Shaft 11?
Shaft 11 letters are being processed by the community and the police. And we have shared all the letters with your colleagues on the ground here, right? I've heard about those other letters. But I'm saying what the police are doing, they are conflating the situation in other shafts where there are staircases, where there is a lift for miners to come on the surface on their own. Shaft 11 is a 2 to 3 kilometer hole without a lift, without any staircase, without any other means of these miners coming out on their own. That is the bottom line here. And the reality is these miners have been begging to come out for weeks and for months since the beginning. Not once did we send a rope and that rope came up empty. And even now, as the rescue has started, in actual fact, the danger that people looking at the video, including the police themselves, are warning the community volunteers is that the way those miners are desperate to come out, because many of them, they don't know if that lift will come again for them, given the fact that there's been many interruptions of the rescue, right? They are fighting to be the first to get into that lift. That is the only danger that we're facing, right? Of the stampede, right? No single one on the ground here suggest and has ever suggested that people as Shaft 10 had an option of coming out, they had ways of coming out, and they've refused to come out. Not once.
So what responsibility do the illegal miners then bear? I mean, we saw community members and some civil society organizations picketing earlier today as these government ministers visited the area. You personally blame the government and the ministers for this loss of life. Is that truly fair? Isn't some responsibility at the hands of the illegal miners themselves? I mean, you talk about how dangerous it is down there. These are people who went in knowing that this is criminal, knowing how risky that is to their lives.
Now, let's understand how this operation could have been conducted, right? You have a shaft that, as I've said, is a 2 to 3 kilometers hole. Miners are located at different levels, 1.6, 1.8 kilometers. They can't come on their own. There is a pulley system where basically miners through a rope goes in and out. There are a handful of people on the surface who assist with that. The police could have gotten there and said to the miners, now we can no longer allow anybody to go in. People need to come out. We are sending you to go down there and tell them to come out. What police is did in? If the police had done that, Clement, we would not have had anybody losing their lives. In fact, police would have saved a lot of money because people keep saying, why should we be paying taxes for these illegal miners? In fact, police wasted a lot of money because they stood on 2 to 3 kilometer hole without a staircase, without a lift, and basically saying, we'll wait when these miners come out on their own. When the miners underground were not even aware for 2 to 3 months that basically the police are waiting for them on the surface. All that they saw is that no new miner is coming underground. There is no food, there is no water, there is no medication coming. By the time that the community started to protest, that these miners can come out on their own, we need to be able to pull them up. We need to be able to supply them with food, water, and medication to sustain them. Already, there was a dire state of crisis where lots of them were emaciated, dehydrated, and physically weakened by that. That is where a lot of cost and a lot of crisis actually emanated. And after that, series of decisions that were made led to the death, a needless death of this man.
Got it. Mametlwe Sebei, attorney at Lawyers for Human Rights, thank you so much for speaking to us tonight. Here's a reminder of the question we've been asking you tonight here on Face the Nation. What do you think government should have done initially? Right, as these rescue operations continue in Stilfontein, do you think the situation could have been handled differently? Let's start with your tweets. Khomo on Twitter says, I think government was nice to the criminals. They've done their best in deadly situation. Illegal miners are hardcore criminals. Muzi says the government was correct not to risk our police for armed criminals who refused to surface. Thank you so much for those tweets. We also have voice notes that you've sent responding to that question of government's slow pace, even though government itself says we didn't just wait. We were in meetings every day and trying to get the money to also hire this special cage that is now being used over the last 2 days now. Here's what some of you have had to say on the voice note line.
Hello there, my name is Johnny Murake. I am calling from Klerksdorp. I think the subs, when they started this operation of Balamukoti, they could have done this early. They could have organized this cage that they have organized. But now it's a little bit late, and you must remember human rights activists are busy accusing the subs. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Elia Clement. I think the government have played their role, and I want to believe that the community leaders somewhere, somehow, they dropped the ball by not pushing the communication of forcing those illegal miners to come out to surface, to resurface. So all those kind of things, I think the government played their role. Simon Purukwa.
I'm so disappointed in our government. They should have started this operation before we're going to Christmas. Those people will have been survived, and we should have forgot about it long time ago. I'm Shongisa Nyati here in Mamelodi. Thanks.
Hi, Clement. I think it's not fair for people to blame the government of not caring about the lives of those illegal miners, while they themselves, they don't care about their lives. All they care about is digging and doing that illegal mining and getting money. They only care about money, not their lives. I'm Skumuzo Kababa in Cliptown.
Thank you so much for your comments. After the break, we'll speak to the Health Minister, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. Is there about to be a compromise on the NHI? He says that's not the case. He'll explain to us after this. Welcome back. Now, the Department of Health says it's concerned about the consistent disinformation about the National Health Insurance. This comes after weekend reports that the ANC plans to table a compromise proposal on the implementation of the NHI in order to appease its partners in the Government of National Unity. The NHI has been an issue of contention between the big parties in the GNU. The Health Minister, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, joins me now in studio. Minister, thank you so much for making time and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Clement. Compliments to you too, and compliments to the listeners and viewers out there.
Are you still committed as government to realizing the National Health Insurance, or are there changes that could still be made along the way to accommodate colleagues in the GNU and concerns that have been raised so far?
Well, any law, Clement, first of all, yes, we are committed. NHI is universal health coverage. It's a global imperative started by the World Health Organization and adopted by United Nations. When it was discussed at United Nations, I don't remember a single country that said no. We all said we must implement universal health coverage. Even got included in the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, that if the world is to develop sustainably, we need those goals. And goal number 3.8 is about universal health coverage. And we signed for that. So it's not something that we just picked from the air. That's our position at the present moment. Now, on the issue of changing, whether anything can change, there's no law on earth that never changes. I'm sure you know that. Even the Constitution, even the very old strong democracies, they change their Constitution time and again. It all depends to what end are you doing it, and in whose interest, and who's going to benefit from such a change. So any law which has been passed by Parliament does get changed. That's why there are amendments and all that. But you must, when you do them, it must be in the interest of the country, not of particular individuals.
As things stand now, since the president signed the bill into law, is there consideration to make some changes to accommodate some concerns that have been raised?
Well, it depends, as I'm saying, what concerns, but up to now we don't know any concern which will make us amend an act, which has not yet been implemented yet, by the way. All we know is that there are court cases. At the moment, there are 3. It's one court case by Solidarity, and the second court case by the Board of Healthcare Funders. That means the association of some medical schemes, not all, but some medical schemes. For instance, Discovery, one of the biggest private medical scheme, independent medical schemes, is not part of that BHF, just to give you an example. So it's not everybody, it's an association which medical schemes join voluntarily. They've also went to court. The last group that went to court is a group of private specialists. Those are the 3 court cases that are going to be heard, I think, from March this year.
Why is it still not enacted?
The what?
This law. So when
the
you
NHI.
say, because the president has signed the bill into law, right?
Yes.
And then at what point does it become effective?
Presidents, after signing into law, they promulgate certain sections. But at the moment, Clement, any law that you have passed, even after the president signs, you must come with regulations. You can't implement the law if you don't have regulations. We have worked on the regulations, and I must confess it took a bit of time because it was done internally in the department by the legal unit that was there. And when we looked at it, it was not very satisfactory. We had to go out into the legal market to look for expertise because we realized we are lacking expertise. We want high-level expertise. We went out, and fortunately we got a company, legal unit, that can do those regulations. They've done them. And the next step was that in health, unlike in many other departments, we've got a statutory political body called NHC, National Health Council. In some department, that National Health Council is called MINMEC, where the minister meet with the MECs. In those departments, MINMEC is a coordinating structure. In health, it's not coordinating, it's statutory, because it involves all 3 spheres of government. It is chaired by the minister, all the 9 MECs sit there, but the Surgeon General of South African Military Health Services, because the army has got its own health services, also sit there. And SALGA, because some clinics, especially in major metros, are run by municipalities. So SALGA has got 2 seats in there. When that seat is called National Health Council, and that National Health Council sat only on the 28th and 29th of November. And on the 28th and 29th, we put the regulations there, debated them, went through them. They've been passed, which means they can go out into the public.
But did you consult other stakeholders in working on those regulations?
Well, you have to agree first among yourself. When you release them, you are releasing them for public comment.
Okay.
That's consultation of stakeholders. But you can't release them without agreeing in the National Health Council as a statutory body. And so the National Health Council has agreed. We could have released them in December, but part of the legal the law of the country is that when you have written regulations or a law in Afrikaans, it must be translated into other languages. That is what the process that in which you are involved. In the few coming weeks, we'll come out and say, here are the regulations. And the public will now get engaged with them. Yes.
So to be clear, as it stands now, contrary to what has been reported, there's no compromise whatsoever that has been considered by the ANC or the government. The government and the ANC are still very much behind the bill as the president has signed it.
To my knowledge, because I sit in the ANC's Health and Education Committee. That's a subcommittee of ANC that deals with health and education. I'm also the minister who has to implement all the laws that are in health, especially NHI. I do not know any of these compromises from any of these structures. At least if there's any group that made that compromise or proposed it, they've never told me about it, so I know nothing.
So why did the president then tell the business community to submit their inputs and comments and what they are concerned about? Because it's almost like he's raising high hopes that whatever they submit could very well be considered.
No, he was showing that you don't just dismiss people before you hear what they are saying. They said they've got a proposal as to whether you will accept it or not. That's a different story altogether.
The bill is already signed. They've already commented when the NHI went through through parliamentary processes. Why come back and want them to state what they've already stated during the parliamentary process?
Well, as I understood it, the president like consulting. He did so even with Bella.
Sometimes it's unnecessary. It's wasting time.
Well, look.
Because people have already said, this is my concern. During a constitutional process in Parliament, you sign the bill, then they come back and say...
he believes in dialogue, because I was there in that meeting when they told me, him point blank, that after the meeting he must announce that we are stopping the implementation of NHI.
Who told him that?
The BUSA, Business Unit South Africa.
But who tells the president what to do?
Exactly. And he was not very happy with that. He was very upset because they said they want him to stop and they negotiate it, so you can't. If you have got any proposal, put it on the table. And they didn't have any. They said they'll come with any proposal.
Okay.
They wrote it and it took 6 weeks. And it's in front of us. But they said it shouldn't be made public, so I'm respecting that.
Are you going to consider that proposal?
We are looking at it, what they are saying, but I'm saying they said it's not for public consumption, and we must respect that. And I'm being honest to them, because that's why they've said that we are giving you this proposal. It's between us, but it's not for public consumption. As to whether we are going to accept the proposal there or not, that's a different story altogether.
But you and I know that whatever they've sent to you as a proposal is what they've already said during the parliamentary process.
We won't know until we go through it.
Okay. So where is that process that the president initiated then? Because he said, come with your thoughts and inputs. Is that the proposal you're speaking about that they've now presented?
Yes.
Okay. What is the next step then now, Minister, on the NHI?
As I've told you, as far as our consent, we are going on, but there are 3 court cases. It depends what the outcome of those court cases are. But you can't pass a law and stop and say there are court cases, I'm not going on with it. You can't do that, you go on. And as I've told you, the next step is to release those regulations to the public, which we'll do in the next coming days. Not going to take very long. As I'm saying, our biggest problem was just the translation in keeping with the law. Then, but also, then the process of setting up structures. NHI need very important structures and important committees which are going to do particular functions. And that will be our next step after the regulations.
After you've put the regulations. Okay, so the business community has presented now this proposal. You are working on the regulations that are going to be out. How are you then handling the situation in the GNU? Because that's another challenge. You've got other parties, well, specifically the DA, that doesn't wholeheartedly agree with the NHI law as it is.
I would like us to be careful when we talk about business community, because business community is quite big. This is one business association called BUSA, Business Unit South Africa. There are other businesses, which I remember the Black Business Council clearly said that doesn't represent them.
Yeah.
And they didn't tell us that in a meeting. We were in there, you remember the Mametlwe process that takes place every year in the Drakensberg. I was going to present there, and Hanki Mataban, who is the CEO of business,
Black Business
Council, he said, no, what BUSA has presented doesn't represent us as Black business. So I just wanted to correct that. That is not the business community, it's a particular unit of the business community. So what was the question? Let me...
The GNU, because
yes.
the DA is unhappy about the NHI as it is.
Look, Clement, as we stand now at the present moment, in financing healthcare, using medical aids at the moment, only 10% of the bulk population are on medical aids. I know me and you have, because we work for the state institutions. Only 10% of the Black population are on medical aids, as against 72% of the white population who are on medical aids, covered by medical aids, and held by government in the form of subsidies. So when we subsidize medical aid, we are subsidizing, and especially in the form of tax credit, we are subsidizing 72% in the white population, but in the Black population is only 10. So if we're a DA member which represent mostly white interest, what will you do? They are protecting their interest as a group because they are benefiting from the present system.
Yeah, and
as far as I'm sitting here, I benefit as an individual, but I don't represent myself. I represent the majority of people in our country, and if 90% of them are not covered, why can't I go on?
Yeah, and as much as you are representing the interests of your constituency as the African National Congress as well, you've decided you want to work with the Democratic Alliance, which has its own constituency. So whether you agree or disagree with them, they must also put the interests of their constituency first.
Precisely. But I must also put mine. Precisely, I expect that.
So how do you manage that? Because that's a deadlock. And you need each other in order for this GNU to work.
Well, as to whether the GNU is continuing or not, that's beyond my page. What do you call a paycheck? I'm not at that level, yes. As will be discussed at the higher level than me.
All right.
In both government and the organization.
Right.
That's beyond my pay. It's higher than my pay grade, actually. So I won't be able to answer that.
Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, Health Minister, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time. Thanks to you for watching the Tuesday edition of Face the Nation. We'll be back with you on Thursday at 8 p.m. Thanks for watching. Cheers.